Estate planning is positive planning. Asset protection planning is negative planning. Estate planning is something that we want to do for the benefit of our beneficiaries. We're transferring assets for the benefit of our beneficiaries. We want to voluntarily transfer those assets. Asset protection planning, even though we're transferring those assets during life, we want to make sure that in that asset protection structure, they won't be transferred to our creditors when they arise. The goal of estate planning is the expeditious and efficient transfer of assets, again, to the objects of one's bounty, whoever that might be. The goal of asset protection planning is transfer to structure wealth ownership for the most effective, comprehensive lifetime protection of those assets from the reach of all possible threats. To infuse reason into the litigation process and judgments, and it's basically based upon creditor deterrence. We want to slow the creditor down. If anybody that's doing asset protection planning says it's a slam dunk, it's 100% protective, it's completely protected from any creditor, it's not the case. If you have an aggressive enough creditor, they're going to chase those assets as much as they want. Liability insurance is important, but there are some limitations. As you know, there are policy dollar limits. Extended coverage is expensive. Policy coverage limitations. Companies can refuse coverage, companies go bankrupt, and it may paint a target on your chest. It's important because it often represents the initial portion of defense against that particular creditor. They'll pick up your defense. But it's not where we end. Where do estate planning goals originate? Care of beneficiaries, spouse, children, pets, extended family, objects of bounty, family values, legacy formation, eleemosynary, charitable, governmental efficiency. We want to make sure that the statutory requirements, particularly in probate, as we're all aware of, and taxes are taken care of. Where do asset protection goals and threats originate? Business, vocational, right? Contract, product liability, that sort of thing. Personal, avocational, tort, personal liability, ownership, governmental, obligatory, taxes, 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 parking tickets, and fines. What are the risks? Litigation, male or nonfeasance liability, divorce, business or personal. Economic, business reversals, economic reversals, currency fluctuations, regional instability, third-party negligence, anybody that's considered within your realm of control, a party or asset, it's going to become your liability. Liability generating events, anything that would create liability in your life, those are the things that we're trying to protect against. The threat risk examples, avocational, fast cars, fast airplanes, fast boats, fast women, and fast men. I used to not have men in there until about 6 or 7 years ago. I was approached by a client that I'd done a bunch of estate planning work for. And at the end of about a 3-month period, she'd recently lost her husband. It's the same story, you know. Had recently lost her husband, and within about a 3-month period, this fellow, never found out who he was, where he was, had his name, but that was all on a telephone number, had fleeced her out of about $800,000. So we try and protect that. It was brought to my attention by the financial planner. But at that point, there was nothing we could do. We tried to chase him. The FBI was after him. They couldn't find him. So hang gliding, base jumping, anything that flying little airplanes around the country. I happen to do that periodically. People think that's dangerous. I don't think so. Vocational. Did work for a pre and neonatal neurosurgeon, just to consider the ramifications of that kind of a practice. Relatively young fellow, in his mid-40s. He was paying, just to take the scenario. In Illinois, physicians typically get $1 million worth of malpractice insurance. That's about all they can buy, typically, unless they work for a large clinic. He was in practice by himself. He was paying about $650,000 a year for $1 million of coverage. So he got to a point in his life, frankly, where he decided that that wasn't worth it anymore. And he took down his shingle, as it were, and went to Africa and became a missionary. So he decided that that just wasn't worth it anymore. I do work for physicians that do decide to go completely bare, no insurance whatsoever. Any professional whatsoever, whether you're an attorney, whether you're a CPA, architect, engineer, anybody that's a professional that has a license hanging on it, anybody for that matter, certainly has some higher level of liability potential.